magic, white and black, the science of finite and infinite life. Chapter 9. Transformations. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 7 verse 2. The universe is a manifestation of thought, and thought is an action of mind. The mind whose thought can bring a universe into existence must be an universal mind, embracing in its totality all the individual minds that ever existed, and containing the germs of everything that will ever come into existence. Mind is a motion of will. Without the will acting either consciously or instinctively, mechanically within the mind, there would be no production of thought. Nor could the will produce any orderly thought on the mind if there were no wisdom, and it will therefore be safer to say the universe is a product of thought, will and wisdom. Nor could either of these three ever produce anything if they were seeking to act independently of each other. They must necessarily be one, and that one representing itself in three different aspects, as creative thought, universal will, and divine wisdom is commonly called God. It will therefore be best to say the universe is a manifestation of God. I'm well aware that the use of such an expression always gives rise to innumerable misunderstandings in the minds of theists, atheists, and pantheists, because each of these classes has its own conception of God, forgetting that the finite mind cannot conceive of the infinite, and that the universal God is beyond the understanding of anything less than its own divine self. A man's life does not reside outside, but within his own body, and likewise God does not live outside of his own creation, but his power acts inside of nature. God is everything in nature, and also in that which is not produced by nature, and therefore supernatural and eternal, such as justice and truth. Nevertheless, nature is not God, everything is not divine. But everything is a state of being, wherein under certain conditions the power of God can become manifest. Likewise, a stone or a tree is not nature, but in each stone and in every tree, certain qualities of natural laws are revealed. If God is all and one, then there can be only one original power and one original substance. And power and substance themselves can only be two modes of manifestation of the Eternal One. There can be neither matter nor motion per se. These two terms signify merely two aspects of that which is beyond our conception. If our minds were independent of the conceptions of time and space, we might perceive how it was that the One ever came to manifest itself as a three and to create a world. But as we are ourselves his creatures, we cannot encompass our Creator, we cannot penetrate with our curiosity into the sanctuary of the mystery of mysteries. We can merely rise up in our thought to the throne of the Eternal, and seek to feel the power of God within our own heart. And then we will know more about him than if we study the whole library of the Vatican or learn by heart the Encyclopedia Theologica. Jacob Boehme, a man who was capable to open his eyes and to see the truth, and who was therefore not under the necessity of depending on mere belief in what he might have imagined to be true in consequence of drawing logical inferences from external observations, says, "The eternal foundation, the will of God, became desirous of conceiving of something, and as there was nothing but its own self, this universal consciousness conceived of its own self. It looked within itself, Or to express it in other words, God beholds himself in the mirror of his own eternal wisdom. Human language is not well adapted to the discussion of eternal truths which are beyond finite comprehension, and which can never be understood unless we call to our aid that very light of whose existence we desire to obtain proof. Therefore, the external reasoner and doubter, he who relies solely on his own intellectual reasoning, will never arrive at eternal truth, because he rejects the light of the Spirit and extinguishes not the light, but his own capacity of understanding. If there is only one God in the universe, there can be only one power. This power is called the will, and it is fundamentally the same, whether it manifests itself in the spiritual plane as divine love, wisdom, life, light, justice and truth, on the astral plane as attraction, repulsion, emotion, passion, desire, in the physical plane as motion, light, heat, magnetism, electricity, cohesion, chemical affinity or anything else. All these powers and forces and energies are and can be nothing else but manifestations of will acting on the higher planes with and on the lower ones without self-consciousness. God never changes and the will never changes. Nothing ever changes except the mode of the manifestation. All these assertions require no other proof but one's own observation. If you doubt them, look within yourself and ask yourself whether or not they are true. If there is only one God in the universe, there can be only one substance. This substance can fundamentally likewise be nothing else but the will, but for the sake of distinction we may call it the mind, because it is by means of a mental imagery that the will creates thoughts within itself. We might also call it imagination or ideation, but whatever words we may use, there is each and every one of them liable to be misunderstood, because words are merely symbols, and to the understanding of any symbol a key is necessary. This key is the understanding itself, which can be given by no man because it is a self-existent principle that is not of man's making, but will come to him by its own grace, if he makes himself ready for its reception. This one substance is fundamentally the same in all departments of nature. It constitutes the body of God and therefore of the highest angels. It forms the vehicle of spirit and light and thought. It is everything, from the astral light that pervades the world down to the most grossly material objects. The highest mountains, no less than the most minute atoms, are corporified mind, thought rendered solid and material by the inactivity of their inherent will. If the will of God were to begin to move within the foundations of the earth, the world which we now occupy would be dissolved in the twinkling of an eye. All is one, and the one is in eternal rest. Nevertheless, we find no absolute rest anywhere, but wherever we look, we find a continual change of form and activity, a transformation of the images existing in the infinite mind. If the mode of activity of the will is changed within a form, the form changes its attributes, but form itself is nothing. It is merely an external appearance. There is consequently no change of anything except of the appearance and mode of manifestation of that which eternally is. Forms are shapes of the will, tinctured by the imagination. Or we may also say, they are shapes of mind, whose qualities are determined by the action of the will residing in them. They are all certain states of mind and will. and as such they are enduring or not according to the quality and intensity of the vibrations of the divine light that causes them to exist as an appearance on the screen of creation. They are all manifestations of their own inner spiritual light, rendered objective and corporeal. If the will and thought constituting a form are divine, the form will be perfect. If the will is impure, or the thought inharmonious, there will be disharmony in the form which is their external expression. The perfection and duration of a form depends on the quality of the character expressed therein. A thought which is a perfect expression of the truth is everlasting and beautiful. It will require no circumstantial evidence to prove that it is true. Its truth will be self-evident to everyone who is capable to perceive it. Everyone who possesses truth himself is an authorized expert in knowing the truth, while the skeptic and liar cannot see the truth, however learned he may otherwise be.